Welcome to Thought Cops, coming to you live from the mean streets of Neo Chicago. I am Officer Kevin.
I'm Officer Grant.
How's it going, Grant?
Madness, Kevin, you asked me.
Madness?
You said, cause I thought my headphones aren't working good, and I thought you said madness.
Yeah,
and I'm just wondering where you think you are right now.
I'm looking around everything around me. I'm like, I think that this is Sparta.
No, it's Chicago.
You sure?
But speaking of Sparta.
You okay?
Speaking of Sparta, we have Keaton on. Last episode was episode 300.
Yeah.
And I played the Sparta remix, and Kevin went, why don't we get the guy that made that remix on the show? And I went, I didn't know someone made that. And not only did Keaton make that, but he made a number of other things that I've seen personally with my eyeballs. And now I can put face to video. So Keaton, hello. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
And we're so happy to have you here, man. Yeah, one of our listeners was, because we're like, we got back from the hiatus last week, and we're like, let's get some fresh blood in the show. Who do you guys want to see? And then somebody was like, oh, you guys had the Sparta remix on the last episode. Why don't you guys have the guy who made it? So
that's crazy that somebody asked. I love that.
So you've been making stuff on the computer for quite a while, Keaton. Is that correct?
That is right.
It's been probably about 20 years.
Probably since about 2002, I would say, is when I started. Like, now I have a computer I can do stuff on. Started grinding away.
What was the first thing you ever made?
Well, the first thing I made that I'm considering my 2002 start was like drawing stuff frame by frame in MS Paint and using this weird free software we had to like stitch them together into GIFs. And then I started doing that in Flash when I got a pirated copy of Flash, and was still pasting in MS Paint pictures because I didn't understand you could draw in Flash at first.
Yeah.
And then that turned into me doing primarily test Flash animations that I wasn't posting anywhere for like a year, which is kind of like a benefit that I feel like we had in the old days because the internet wasn't the default. Like, I'm definitely putting this online.
Yeah.
I was just playing around. I was just making stuff.
Right. Just making stuff for yourself.
I gotta ask, because so much of that stuff, I've always, I'm a creative. And by that, I mean, I'm pretentious and I don't really do much, but, I've always been interested in animation, and I've always looked at people doing animation and gone, oh, I'm never doing that. So you get you derive a pleasure from doing these meticulous things and changing a line this much and then doing that 24 times in a second and then throwing that on the internet.
Well, I will say that starting off, I guess, as a little kid playing around with a video camera trying to do stop motion is probably what led me into feeling comfortable with trying to do some stuff with animation in the first place.
You got to have the patience for that.
Yeah, that's horrifying to me. I have zero patience as a human being to ever do anything like that.
I've also slowly realized that I feel like I was kind of trying to one-up my older brother, because he would do a stop motion animation that kind of was reminiscent of Action League Now from Nickelodeon.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to one-up him, so if he did something that felt kind of like 12 frames per second, I was like, I'm going to be doing the 30 frame per second, trying to do it as fast as I can, where I'm clicking record just for one little microsecond and moving the character just a tiny bit. And I remember getting a Terminator 2 character to slide across my room as an action figure. And everyone was like, whoa, look how smooth it is. But, he wasn't moving his feet or anything. He literally was just sliding. And I do actually feel like if I had started out in just purely video editing, I would have never gained that sort of appreciation for the frame by frameness of animating. So when I went from Flash animating to video editing, it was like a total paradigm shift of like, instead of you obsessing over like a 2-second thing and making sure it eases in right and rotates the right way and feels comfortable, you're just like slapping together 10-minute clips and just making gigantic moving mountains. But it makes it so when I get to like a transition point in a video edit, I really can be very meticulous about sort of like frame by frame stuff.
Does your brother still make stuff too, or are you guys like still going neck and neck trying to one up each other?
My
Is
older
he the
brother,
Numa Numa guy.
No. Yes, and you'll know him as the Numa Numa guy, Gary Brolsma. No, and by the way, I hated the Gary Brolsma Numa Numa guy. Man, talk about 2 minutes of hate. That was something that for some reason that trend frustrated the fuck out of me because I really liked that song. And I couldn't believe that the song became dominated by this guy dancing. Just the least amount of effort type of thing in the world.
It was did Family Guy do that, or did they only do the ding fries are done?
I know they did
Family
the ding
Guy ever
fries
do
are
the
done.
Gary Brolsma thing?
I don't remember them specifically doing that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had referenced it at some point because it was that big. It really was like the biggest thing for some reason.
I just found on YouTube there's the only result I could find was Family Guy Numa Numa AMV.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
anime music video.
Soon with AI, we won't even know. Once we see a clip, a preview of something, we'll be like, oh yeah, Numa Numa guy was on Family Guy. Here's a clip of it. Right
was
here.
that pre-Rickrolling? Because was Rickrolling like more of a YouTube phenomenon? Because like that song's been around for like 30 years or whatever prior to, whatever. But like,
well, that's right. Rickrolling started as a
like you sent someone a fake
thing.
link. Oh, well, was it?
Yeah, and then pre-YouTube being popular, stuff would be, in 2006 era, kind of be a blend of like, yeah, it's on YouTube, but like the real thing that's making that, Rickroll YouTube link work is the fact that it's like being linked around in whatever, something awful or 4chan or YTMD or just talking to your friends.
There wasn't an algorithm back then, I don't think, to like send you to a different video, right?
Right. And YTMD, I know specifically had like a Rickroll page that people were linked to a lot.
That's
so
where I remember it from, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it definitely wasn't a given that it was like you were being sent to YouTube. And I think that in the YTMD days, when I was on YTMD, there was like debate about did the Rickroll thing originate from 4chan or did it originate from YTMD? But it was pretty clear it originated from 4chan. And I think that ended up being the case with most things that people were like, that originated from YTMD. Really, it usually originated from somewhere else. There isn't like a ton of stuff from YTMD, which I was big on as being like the exact definite, like this is the original place it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of like extra content and everything, we talked about the Sparta remix. So did you just see the 300 trailer and then like that just like popped into your head as inspiration? Like I need to make something out of this fantastical trailer, Zack Snyder's movie magic.
So no, the way it happened was I had just started making stuff on YTMD and I had just spent like a year, I can see from my project files, making tons of things in FL Studio. I was trying to make stuff like Weeble, Weeble stuff. I wanted to try and make, like I've seen things, I've seen them with my eyes, or like everyone loves Magical Trevor. I really wanted to make something like that. So I started playing around with FL Studio, and when I kind of discovered YTMD, I was like, okay, how can I get popular in here? I'll just take like the fads that are blowing up and I'll just
That's what they used to be before memes. Yeah, they were called fads.
That's right.
The
definitely.
Brian Peppers fad.
Right. And it's not because we were going against the grain of saying meme. It's because no one had ever said meme ever.
Yeah.
I think that meme came from like,
was it Richard Dawkins
I could be
or something?
Incorrectly. Yeah, because especially I think once like the internet had this big tie-in with like atheism culture, and like people started reading like the God Delusion and like, oh, this guy is putting the smack down on these religious people. Let's read all of his books, and then they're like meme.
Totally. I did hear that
Interesting.
it has dictionary origins. Yes, there's precedence for the word, and it has some sort of meaning in like the propagation of ideas, or even maybe
Similar
even
to
like viruses.
Yeah, similar to how DNA is sort of like a biological phenomenon. It's like a neurological phenomenon sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. But I thought the word
also in the game Metal Gear Revengeance.
meme is
Yeah. A boss character who describes the definition of meme, but more in the terms of like what Grant's explaining. There's like the DNA of the human language that passes on from generation to generation.
And that's before the internet usage of it, sort of?
It was like it definitely was not because of the internet usage.
Right.
It was like before it was like really in your face, like, Epic Brian or Fail Guy Tom or whatever. I can't remember a single meme now all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, me
making
either.
them up.
You got them. That's it.
So we were pretty strongly against the rise of the word meme when we were always saying fad. I mean, it was in my vernacular. I said fad every day, all the time, about YTMND stuff and other internet stuff. So anyways, I was remixing stuff on YTMND, kind of like whatever the popular site of the day was, which sometimes it was like a movie clip thing, Back to the Future. Maybe like one time it was a news story. I'd make these kind of like subpar remixes, and none of them really had that like massive viral potential. But then I started clicking into the mindset of like, I wanted to do viral potential things. So I did like 3, I think, where it was like, I need this to go viral. And one of them was a Dotson remix of something, a line from Jurassic Park where Dennis Nedry is going like, we got Dotson here. And that one did pretty well. And then I did one when I realized that these things would spread, where I was like, I'm going to do a Leroy Jenkins remix, and I'm going to make I made the domain on YTMND, put this in the WoW forums.ytmnd.com, and it worked. Like, it was spreading everywhere. And then I like replaced all the assets on the YTMND because you could edit it, and made it like a high pitched, square note, and changed the image to something weird. So then when there was tons of people linking to this thing and tons of people were looking at it, it no longer was a funny remix anymore. It was a big, loud, high pitched noise that hurt your ear. Nice ear rape. And, blind with power, making remixes, I felt my peak confidence, and there was a remix contest, and I really wanted to get on the YTMND soundtrack. So I submitted like 3 remixes to this remix contest, where I kept sort of one-upping myself, being like, no, judge this one. No, judge this one. And then someone made a YTMND right after the trailer dropped for the Sparta thing. This person named North American Danger Duo. I looked them up before the interview so I could name drop them, because really they are the one that made the asset that I took and remixed to make the song. And it was, if that person didn't make that YTMND, I don't think that I would have done that, because I wasn't trying to remix the most modern. I was trying to remix like classic movies. I wasn't trying to remix like the latest trailer. But something that has occurred to me is, if that trailer didn't come up right then, when YouTube was on the rise and they were actually putting trailers on YouTube and stuff, it also wouldn't have happened. A lot of things kind of came together to make it work. A big trailer dropping on fucking YouTube where you could actually like rip it was kind of a new thing.
Sure. Did you like the movie 300? Did you ever see it?
I was pretty pumped from the trailer, but was also kind of like, I didn't like Gladiator. This has got to be better than Gladiator, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, when I saw it, I hated it. I just thought it was horrible. I've never watched it again. I
haven't seen it like since probably it came out in theaters. Like, I must have been, I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was like everybody was like so psyched for that movie to come out. Because it was like, like, say what you will about Zack Snyder. Yeah, he's put out some real clunkers and stinkers over the years, but he's got a very distinct visual style. And I think he took that old, like, the ancient Greek mythology and stories and everything, and kind of gave it this extra flair and this visual oomph to it that seemed to like resonate with people, especially probably of that age range when it came out. And
they put the trailer together very well because I was legitimately excited for the movie.
Yeah, and I remember, that fucking screaming, like, "This is Sparta!" was like, big on YTMND, along with fucking Snakes on a Plane.
Big pretty much everywhere. But yeah, it does seem to be like the perfect whirlwind of like, this was a bit like, again, this is before like Marvel movies are big and popular and whatever, and this is like, the basis is it's a comic book movie, and this is like one of the maybe bigger comic book movies. It's also like an alternative comic book from like your typical like Batman movie or Superman movie or whatever, so it has like a distinct look and everything, but it's also just like it's this early quotable like meme format that eventually the internet, like, we all just sort of collectively grabbed onto with our brains and just like sucked all the funny out of. And now we just do that for pretty much everything.
I wouldn't rule out that they didn't know. I wouldn't rule out that they knew that line was going to be like a meme thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because like Snakes on the it was like in the Snakes on the Plane era, so they could have already been in that sort of like mindset.
Yeah.
But that's how a lot of stuff feels now. Like they're trying to make something that's going to be an iconic line, or it's going to be something that could be memed because like the caption and the imagery just like lines up in a certain way. Right. But yeah, I think they were doing a little bit of that then too.
Yeah.
And then for you to have created this at that time when it's already something that's sort of playing into these things, and then you create this remix, which is just taking this thing that's already over the top that, kids in middle school are screaming this at each other and kicking each other in the chest. And you take this video and you make this remix and you sort of like, you turn the dial to 11 and it's just like, I can't hear "This is Sparta" without hearing
hell yeah.
That sort of like, it's just like, it's in all of our brains now. Like it's literally viral in the sense that there's no antidote. I can't get rid of it. It's in my bloodstream for the rest of my life.
Well, that's great. I get that impression, but I can't feel that because, I'm the one that created it. And I will say that like I will just say straight up, the way that the song resonates with people, whatever it's doing, beyond the day that I like made it, I can't like feel that. I don't know what people are getting out of it. I don't really know why it has spread so much or why it has such longevity. All I know is that when I was making it, it wasn't just me waking up one day being like, I'm going to make this remix. I had just spent the past like 3 weeks trying to make stuff that was going to be popular and trying to make stuff on YTMND that would make me a cool YTMNDer. I didn't really know that it was going to go viral outside of YTMND, but I did know that Leroy Jenkins one did. So I was in that mindset of like, maybe I can get stuff to like blow out of
kind of cracked the code. Yeah.
But I never, I want to also clarify, I never posted it anywhere else. The only place I've ever posted it was ytmnd.com and on my own personal website. Anywhere that it went beyond that was just totally organic.
Stolen content, too.
Kind of stolen content. And at first it bothered me. At first it was a little confusing. At first when it was getting reposted, I was like, I'm used to this. I've had stuff on the internet, like the Evil Strawberry or Ducks Live on the Moon, that spreads around, but you always were able to label your Flash animations very much with like your name and your website and everything. Yeah. So when this started spreading, and I was so good about tagging my MP3s with my website and stuff, when it started spreading in a way that didn't have my name on it anymore, I didn't know how to handle it because I didn't want to be like a loser messaging people being like, can you put my like name on this? I wanted to like play it cool and be cool about it. So sort of what I did almost immediately was started making YouTube videos, sort of just making fun of the fact that it was blowing up and making like a fake tutorial video or making a parody where it was like just the word "this" being remixed over the song, and it was a bunch of like stolen GIFs with text saying like, I'm just compiling a video of like stolen GIFs because that's what all the popular videos were. But
did you get like some like punk rock street cred acumen from doing that, where everyone's like, yeah, he's against the system, Was everyone
yes,
like, yeah?
I mean, in the comments, and then very, very, very few moments in my life, like in person, people kind of being like, I saw that one video where you were trying to do like a tutorial and you made it look like you opened up a music program out of like Windows Movie Maker, and I was in Windows Movie Maker, like trying to open that up. And it seemed like they appreciate that, at least now. And the comments that were on the video where I was making fun of all of the like stolen GIF videos, it feels like at first every comment was like, oh my God, like, Keaton, you're a genius. And if anyone came in being like, what the fuck is this? Maybe people would swarm on them and be people like, you don't get it. And as time has went on, there's definitely like less of an army of people trying to like be like, no, you don't get it. It's like ironic. You don't understand. I feel like I can't just like lay back and be like, I'll just let people like explain this on my behalf. I'm not going to go around commenting saying like, no, you don't get it. It's a joke, because that kind of ruins the joke.
Yeah.
It's still, I feel like I still see that happen. Like, I know I've talked about it in our Discord before, but there's been like a few like hard drive articles or Nintendo Life articles I've done recently. And there's like, you always get like one like crazy oddball that like shows up. And it's almost like a social experiment in a way to see how, like, I'm not going to engage with this at all. And this is almost similar to when the Elon Musk stuff happened a year ago, where it's like, I'm not going to engage with this at all. I'm going to just like let people, I'm just going to observe and watch how people kind of react to it. And sometimes like it's kind of surprising. People come to your defense and things like that. And
sometimes they DM you on Instagram and send you weird messages.
They say no. They find your Instagram account and comment on your pictures and say, "You got me banned from Nintendo Life. Let me back in." Dude, I wrote one fucking article. Like, what the fuck
I take note very much when a big creator, gets either ripped off or their work is getting really popular without their name or something, on how they handle it, because sometimes people handle it very, very, very well. Mm. And like, for instance, like, a music video or something might get posted, and like the Money Machine 100 Gex music video, I remember someone posting it and someone like quote tweeting it on Twitter, and somehow very, just without bragging or whatever, being like, I made this video, and they were clearly getting a lot of love and follow up. But you can fuck that up. You can quote tweet and be like, I made this, and it does not work, and you look like you're trying to get cred, and you look mad. And so, for the most part, as the Sparta thing has blown up, like when I was a kid, I would have been like, why does the creator of this not like totally indulge in like commenting everywhere and posting everywhere that I made this? And you can. Like, if I went into the video that's massively popular with like 40 million views on YouTube and kept posting like, I'm the one who made this, that doesn't make me look good. It looks weird. And I sometimes now want to. It's gotten pretty bad because the comments definitely think that the person who uploaded the first YouTube video is the one that made it. So they think this person, Lele Fonda, everyone in the comments, is the original creator. And I don't really know how much I would gain even if I was like strongly like, no, this was me. You have to like pay attention to me.
We're here to set the record straight.
Yeah.
We're here to tell Lele Fonda, get out of town. You know?
Well, one other thing though is like, so you guys know the song and the videos are kind of like a corny thing. Like, I had several viral videos. I never put those on my YouTube because I was totally in this mindset of like, I don't want to look like a loser trying to get fucking clicks on here. I'm just trying to post my funny art and stuff. I'm going to be like ironic and weird about this. Now, many years later, 16 years later, I don't know that was the right play.
How do you like know though? Because I don't think any of us like, I didn't see Elon Musk buying Twitter, renaming it X, and then turning it into a Nazi hub, but like it is now, and I don't know what.
It wasn't on my bingo card this year.
It wasn't on my fucking bingo card. If you would have told me like 10 years ago, like, yeah, boost your social media presence, but it doesn't matter because one day the richest man in the world is going to buy this website and ruin it. Like, who the fuck knows, you know? Like,
True.
YouTube really only started, I feel like, getting to be this big dominant force when, like, Google bought it, you know? Up until then, it was like, this is a good hosting site, but there's also, like, Dailymotion, and there's all these other, you know, whatever.
Well, I thought definitely that Google Video, which came out right before YouTube, was going to be the dominant platform.
About Google Video.
I was putting videos on there, and even as YouTube was starting to gain traction, I was still like, nah, this Google Video thing's going to be the one. Google Video, you could click to the middle of a video and start playing it. Originally on YouTube, you couldn't do that. You had to wait for it to stream to that point and load to that point. Google Video could do really long videos, and at first on YouTube, you could do 10
YouTube
minutes
sucked
max.
for like a long time.
It really did. And so Google buying it did mean that they put their tech into it, and they did really make it into a platform that I don't think is ever going to go away. And at first, for many years, I thought this is kind of just a fad of a site, and there'll be tons of YouTube sites. I really did think that.
I mean, is there part of you that, like, knows that, like, aside from, and we've obviously been talking about the Sparta remix specifically, but there's other videos and other content that you've made, and we'll definitely get to that. But, like, specifically with that, because that is very just, like, zeitgeisty, like, of the times, like, it again, we're talking about, like, Rickrolling, and we're talking about Numa Numa and whatever, and that's, like, that's got to be up there with it. Is there part of you that, like, is at peace with the idea that it's like you created like this monumental like piece of internet culture, but also at the same time it's like, but also I would love to like have some extra money to throw at a nice new Tesla.
Man, there's a lot. There's so much to say here. Cause like, if the video that went popular original of me making the 300 remix was me like dancing to it, I would hate myself. And I would hate that like I was trying to live that down my entire life. There is a really good thing about me not being really strongly tied with the thing. And there's a reason I don't like throw it into my Twitter bio. I don't want my entire existence to be like one of the things that took off. I mean, I could have done that with other things before the Sparta remix. Like, I am the guy that like made this thing. And I never wanted to do that. But now, okay, so now I am like realizing pretty big time that like a lot of people have made like a lot of money off the Sparta remix. And I've made like pretty much no money. And now I'm even hearing, I just stumbled on like this vlog of this person saying that they've been doing Sparta remixes for 11 years and now they're like going to get back into it. And the reason they're going to get back into it is because this song, one of their Sparta remixes that has like 800,000 views was like their primary source of income. And they were like, listen, like the passion for this left like 5 years ago. The only reason any of us are doing this anymore is for money. And it's like, that's insane. Like, I've never even fucking posted the Sparta remix on my own YouTube channel. And any monetary gain that I have gotten from it has been like these tiny little fluke things. I've never been like making ad revenue or whatever. But so you know how if you upload a YouTube video that uses any song that's real, it like flags it and at the bottom puts a little box with like your name and I could do that, and other people have done that by stealing my song because it's very easy to do. You just like take any song, a famous fucking song that hasn't been flagged on YouTube, and you go to one of these companies called like Audium or Identify or Hawk or TuneCore or BeatStars. There's a bunch of them. And you just fucking upload the song. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove you own it or whatever. And it just starts flagging YouTube videos. And so it's happened to me like 6 times where people have done that to me. And on 2 of the occasions, as a way to get back at them, because the like support people were so roundabout about like, we're not going to take it down, or we're sorry about this, or you need to deal with it yourself, that I uploaded the Sparta remix to their platform myself to kind of be like, well, I'm going to sort of fuck with them while we're trying to figure this out.
Yeah, might as well. Fuck them.
And all of those times they've taken it. For some reason, when I put it up, they take it down. When other people put it up, they can let it run for a year. But the 2 times that I've done it, it's only stayed up for like a month before they just randomly were like, they just took it down. I will say, I've never aggressively been like, oh my God, I need to have this up. Fuck you, we're putting this up, and like pushed them to put it up, and I probably could. But that all goes hand in hand with me not wanting to really ruin this thing. Like, I know that the reason the Sparta remix stuff has probably gotten popular and been a big community trend thing is you know that if you use that song and you make a fun thing with it, it's not going to check a box at the end of your YouTube upload saying this has been flagged as some sort of copyright thing. And early on, if you flagged someone with a copyright thing, I think it like really definitely meant a copyright strike, but it doesn't anymore. I probably could pretty freely just start raking in the dough on this thing without affecting anyone. But I don't know. The one time that I had it spinning for like a month, I started getting messages from people being like, my like channel got like a thing. Am I going to get a copyright strike? Is my channel going to get taken down? You're ruining the community. And I don't like that.
What if we did it? What if we put it up and then people were like, hey, you're the reason why we're not, and then we just take the money, we just give it to you. I don't need the money. You can just have the money.
And we can give him some of it. I mean,
yeah, just do some legal laundering.
Yeah.
Hey, sounds fun to me. But even if someone else flags it, I get all the messages. When a person has stolen the thing, I get tons of messages being like, is this you? And I can confidently be like, no.
At least there's that.
Yeah.
I also saw on Twitter you released the stems for the Sparta remix this week.
So that was me reposting it just because 100 Gex was releasing.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah. So are you just like, so you've done that before then? You already had the stems out there?
Yeah, so I have this website called SpartaRemixPlanet.com, and I made it right at the 10-year anniversary of Sparta Remix. And
when was the original one posted?
February 07.
Okay.
It was posted like 2 weeks after the trailer came out on like January 20th or 22nd or something. I just looked it all up to check. Wait, what was I saying?
The stems and SpartaRemixPlanet.com.
So the SpartaRemixPlanet.com was kind of like, I wanted to give away the stems and the FLP, but I didn't want the project file to just be floating out there because the project file is actually the only proof I've ever had that I made the song. And the platforms that want me to prove that I own it, so they'll take down like someone who stole it and is flagging YouTube videos with it, they've actually had me show them a screen recording of the FLP to prove that I made it. And it's like, you don't understand. This is like everywhere now. This isn't even proof.
Yeah. The genie is out of the bottle.
The genie is out of the bottle. But that is why I held tight to it for a long time. Because I had people asking me for it for years. And I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to give that out.
Yeah.
And so after it being requested for many years and I knew people would like it, I finally released it. And I also knew that was going to change the way the remixing worked because it made it a lot easier to just like take any SpongeBob sample or whatever and just like paste it into the project file and it'll just make the entire song for you rather than like the way people have to meticulously make their own little like Sparta remixes.
Yeah.
And so I was also just wanting to have fun with, I feel like when Aphex Twin or like Boards of Canada like announce an album or something, they do like a whole like AR game where you need to like figure out where the album's coming out and figure out. So I wanted to make a game that was like easy enough to solve for a kid and also hard enough to solve for like a computer science genius. So I made this thing where it was like 300 usernames and 300 passwords and only one of the usernames works and only one of the passwords work. And there's enough clues that if you're a kid, you can figure it out no problem. But if you don't look for the clues and you're like, I'm going to brute force figure this out, it could take a little bit of like engineering work to figure it out.
Or a lot of fucking trial and error.
But like an impossible amount of trial and error. Like
yeah.
It's like 30,000 combinations or something. I guess
crazy,
that's not impossible.
Yeah. I mean, props to you for being creative, at least, about it.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
I tried to make it like just hard enough and just easy enough and just find that balance. And I, at the end, put an email address, like email me if you figure this out. And I started getting emails within like 20 minutes.
See, that's a fun use of the internet. Now, I want to move a little bit away from the Sparta remix. And I actually want to mention, this is this is unprecedented for podcasting in general, because you, as our guest, you did the work for us this week. You sent us a list of questions and topics we can talk to you about. So we just sit on our asses and just read off the list here. So I might go down some of these. And
well, I was going to do the Craig Ferguson thing of ripping up the list and then just freeballing. But Kevin, you can do whatever.
So you didn't take the time to write these all out by hand and then rip it up?
Well, I did, but I just don't want to be rude.
Oh, for sure. That's kind of like he typed this all out for this, and you're ripping it up in front of his face.
Yeah.
But I didn't type
see why Craig Ferguson went off the fucking air.
I want everyone to know I didn't type questions though. Like
some of these are questions.
I was listening to your podcast. Okay, some of them are written as questions. I was listening to your podcast, and every time you guys touched on a topic where I was like, I want to talk about that topic, I was writing it down on a piece of paper. And then
again, very unprecedented. Most guests don't even listen to the show. So thank you.
Well, it's because I was worried we would either just talk about the Sparta remix the entire time or go off on a tangent or something I'm not interested in. But I don't know. Was this weird? I hope it wasn't weird.
No, not at all. I mean, because you know what? There's a lot of stuff even we're not interested in. So I appreciate this. And, we'll see what happens here. I'm just going to go through the stuff without ripping anything up in front of your face.
I had like a thing that I sort of wanted. I don't know if we're doing like in order of the list or if...
Please don't. Just go in order of the list. Just jump around.
But check off what you already did.
Because that's fair. I think that's Alt-Shift-5 to do strike-through text. For those at home that want to know how to do strike-through text.
I love hotkeys.
That up.
Very important shortcut.
But, I mean, even so, the Sparta remix is in and of itself a thing. But I remember, like, I've seen, like, a lot more of your stuff than I was familiar with. And, of course, it's one of those things where it's like, you go on E-Bombs World as, like, a 14-year-old and you're scrolling through and you're just like, I don't know who, and like, these are just funny videos. I don't think people are, like, someone created them, but you don't. And then it's like, oh, I didn't realize you were the guy that made like the evil strawberry video, or like the ducks on the moon video, or
nice. You've seen both of them. Okay.
I've seen both of those. I've also seen the Michael Phelps restaurant video.
Nice.
Like,
hell yeah.
There were so many where it was like, oh yeah, shit, this is like a walk down memory lane. Like I remember seeing these on like E-Bombs World, Albino Black Sheep, like look, a number of these websites.
I have a big kindred spiritness-ship with, we were just talking before the call about DJ Doug Pound. It's very hard to get credit as like an editor or a behind the scenes person without stamping your name and face on it for what you do. And I've kind of known that, but sort of thought it would work itself out. But like, DJ Doug Pound made like all of those G.I. Joe edit things.
Right,
and like nobody fucking knows that. Even
I was just rewatching those like a few days ago. I actually, I had a really bad stomach virus and I had basically lost everything in my body, fluids and all, and I became so delirious. I was like...
His bones, folks. His bones flew out of him. He was like Peter Griffin on the bus.
I was spouting nonsense to my girlfriend, and she was like, no idea what I'm talking about. And then I just started pulling up on my phone, watching the old G.I. Joe videos, and I'm like, that's Doug Pound. That was him.
And those, I feel like, influenced what the humor of like Adult Swim was.
Oh, totally. Like, yeah.
Pre him being involved with Tim and Eric stuff, he had already like set the stage, and he really does not get the cred for that. Yeah,
he made those, because I've heard him talk about it on his show. Him and I think his name is David Fensler, made those, and I think they were like living together in Chicago long time ago.
Right. I know he wasn't the only one that made them, I should say. Caveat, yeah.
Yeah, I think he kind of helped out with them mostly, but yeah, I think Fensler Films was the mastermind behind the whole project. But yeah, it's I guess like we've talked a lot about like early internet, old Flash stuff, early YouTube, pre-YouTube. Do you think that the internet has gotten worse or better since those,
or both?
So it's yes, or both since those halcyon days.
I would say like worse for people like me, because when I had like a website and no one had a website, and I got a couple Flash animations on like Albino Black Sheep and E-Bomb's World, and the barrier to entry for that was hard. You had to just like keep posting in the forums and sort of like figure it out.
Yeah.
Then it was like I was the only person on Twitter. It was like being on Twitter and the only user is Keaton. Like I had so much traffic to my website. If I logged into AIM, my entire screen would just flood with messages. It was amazing. I don't think that can happen again. I don't think even if you had the biggest viral video on TikTok in the whole world, I don't think that you would get the sort of flood that I was getting. But it's obviously better.
You can get a viral video on TikTok that gets like 1 million likes and like nobody clicks through and follows any of your shit.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I am really happy also that the numbers on YouTube seem real. It's hard to get numbers on YouTube, whereas TikTok feels like this botnet of just fake fucking numbers. Like I've had an account on there. Every follow was a robot. Every like and comment was a robot. Like it's all just a big mess. I like that YouTube has not went down the route of being like, let's just accept sort of like every robo watch as like a watch. They make it really fucking hard to get numbers, which is frustrating, but is probably the way I want it to be, rather than it becoming like everyone's just getting like millions of views because like they flew past this thing for 1 second. That was a view. That this flyby was a view. What I would say is the democratization of being able to post stuff is obviously way better. And especially when TikTok came out and it wasn't just like people posting their food photos on IG, but people started doing like sketches and stuff. That's awesome. That's the way it should be. Yeah. It's like making a bunch of funny videos that tons of people are seeing. Cause like if it was only YouTube, the barrier to entry is tremendously high. It's very hard to get views on like a brand new YouTube channel. So TikTok, I think, does fix that. And that's very cool. So the internet's better and it's worse for a lot of different reasons. But I would say
that was the answer
for the most part better. For the most part better.
Worse than others.
That's true.
Why can't we just say it's good or bad? Why do we have to have nuance?
It's bad.
Yeah,
yes
that's
no
what questions. I wanted to hear.
But I do feel like this is probably indicative of like how good or how shitty certain websites can be, is like honestly like advertising, because I'm noticing like I have a Blue Sky account and I'm on there, and it does feel like just kind of like a reinvention of like early Twitter. And it's like, why is this like this? And like it's like, oh, because I'm not looking at ads. And it just kind of sucks that it's like it's one of those websites that eventually it's gonna like exit its beta stage, and it's gonna be like everyone can sign up for it. Right now it's still exclusive, you still need an invite and whatever, but like it's cool that it's just like, oh, all the interesting people that I was following on Twitter, like I'm just following them there, and it's a little more like community-ish. And same thing with like early TikTok. Is I remember when TikTok was like, guess what? We're rolling out ads. We're finally rolling out ads. And it's just like, you just watch all of your views just like drop through the floor.
Really?
And it's just like every other video's an ad now, and it just kind of sucks more. And then you get people that are like making their content to, you know, fulfill like the quota of like how many clicks can I get in order to make ad money off of this.
And I will say, I think that sort of has fucked up YouTube as well, because it wasn't a monetized thing at the very beginning. And that's like a lot of fun when people are just making their own things. Clearly the Sparta Remix community is driven to some extent by money, which is very weird to me. But if that is your drive,
must be so fucking uncomfortable to think about.
Like even now in my 30s, I'm only just clicking into the mindset of like, oh, everything I work on should probably be somehow driven towards my success or money or growth or something. Whereas before, for my entire life, all the way up till now, I just sit it down on the computer and start making stuff with no thinking about like, this is going to be super successful, or it's just stuff that I want to make. And it seems like that is dying quickly. People just making stuff because they just want to make it.
A lot of algorithm chasing, a lot of trend chasing, a lot of, everybody wants to be Mr. Beast.
Exactly. And even me too. And it's actually re-inspiring me a little bit to start posting on like a secret YouTube channel just to test stuff, just to kind of see, let me go the clickbaity route and just see what kind of fun that brings up. Yeah. But it's very different than me just like sitting down at the computer and making something I like and just posting it online.
Just make like the domino challenge, and you just have someone like click a domino down and watch all of them go down and be like, yo! And they win $1 million at the end.
Hey, that's a good beast.
Yeah.
That's a beast.
There is like that aspect though, where it is like, that's like an unfortunate aspect of, I guess, not just the internet, but like creativity in general, is the idea that like people that want to just be working on things and like putting things out and stuff like that. It's like sometimes like you hook something in and like you get something out of it and it's like really cool. And then like, but people see that and then their interpretation of that is not like, how can I make something that's this cool as the thing that I'm seeing and hope that like that resonates with people and whatever. But it's like this backward approach of like, hey, look, these people are making money doing this. If I do this, and it's just like it seems like this vacuum of creativity where it's just like so much content on the internet feels like void of any true like voice and perspective and like actual creativity by people that like doing things. It's just like
totally,
it feels like focus grouped, well, like some of it legit is,
like even just taking the Sparta remix for instance. A lot of these people who have been making them, I think just make them because they know if they put the word Sparta remix in their title, it's going to get some clicks.
Which
they should be making
that for this episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's make sure we do that.
This is going to be every episode from now on is going to be titled Sparta remix.
I hope a lot of people tune into episode 300 and keep listening and listening and listening, and I never come on because that's slightly confusing.
We'll save this. We'll be like putting it off for however long.
Right.
But I can see that like those people, some of them are very, very talented musician-y people, should be focusing on making music. Stop making Sparta remixes. Go just make some cool music. Like, right. I don't even see how they have the patience to keep making this thing. And they probably hate it. They probably just do it because they know it's the only thing that's going to fucking get some views. If they put up their big passionate song, it's not going to fucking get any views. And it's so bad that the cycle is now coming back even to me, where I'm kind of like, should I set up like a secret anonymous YouTube channel where I just make Sparta remixes? It feels like that would be like a good thing to commit time to. That is a very weird result of this, that I'm like, I'm going to abandon my musical creativity to try and secretly participate in this community to maybe make some money is like very weird.
Yeah, it's something that you gave birth to.
Yeah. It's like, I can't even totally wrap my head around it because I haven't spent every waking minute since I put it out on YouTube, like searching Sparta remix. In fact, there was a good like 5 years there where I never looked it up on YouTube and kind of was like, oh yeah, I think that's some sort of dying. Yeah, it was cool for a second. I had no idea it was going to like come back because it's almost like bigger now than it ever was. It's massive on TikTok. The YouTube videos are only getting bigger. It's like really blowing up. And I never, ever, ever would have predicted that ever.
But doctor, I am Leonidas.
So I know you I want to read one of your questions here to yourself. How early did people start saying things were so 90s? Because you also have here, you mentioned like Vaporwave being born, the rise of the VHS look. I feel like something like, I guess I'll answer the question to you myself really quick. I feel like there is a 20-year nostalgia cycle, and sometimes people get in on that a little bit sooner.
Kevin's actually coined that term. Longtime listeners know that that's actually trademarked.
I could be monetizing this. Jesus Christ.
Well, I have so many thoughts about this, and I feel like I can even counter what you're saying. Unfortunately, it's a sad thing. Okay, so in like 2004, like around when Napoleon Dynamite came out, I remember a friend being like, you know why Napoleon Dynamite's cool? Because it's 90s. And I was like, well, they have like the internet and stuff. I think it's supposed to be modern day, but I like get what you're saying. And that was 2004. There is no way in like 2014 we were talking about the 00s. And it's because there's no fucking name for it. No one in 2004 was like, that's so aughts. Oh my God. You know why that movie was cool is because it's 00s. And I really think it's the naming of it that makes it not happen. I think that right now, this decade is the first decade in a while that people are going to be talking about.
Because
it's
it's the
easy
20s.
to say the 20s.
Yeah, the roaring 20s.
You can't say tens. You can't say zeros. It's too hard to say it. People will just call it the early 2000s, and that will just mean the first 20 years.
I mean,
and I think I've had this theory actually even before we entered the 20s. I was already thinking like, no one's using this terminology of saying the 90s. Even in the 90s, people said like, it's the 90s. No one fucking said that during the 2000s or 2010s.
I think that that's true. However, also, there was like some book that came out during the 90s when we were all like, hey, we're in the 90s, aren't we?
It's a go-go 90s.
There was a book that came out that was called like The End of History. And it was just sort of supposed to be this the World War II happened and all of the early history happened and like all this fucking history. But then the Cold War happened. And then guess what? The USSR collapsed. And turns out capitalism works, and it's the only economic system, and so like it's all cool from here. Like we won, so there's no real reason to like there's nothing to write down anymore. Like we're done. It's the end of history. And there was just this weird like the lack of critical like looking back at what we're doing and what we're thinking and like what we are sort of culturally. There's this idea that like racism's over because everyone got on a rooftop and sang a song about Coca-Cola.
That's such a 90s thing,
cool, and like
totally.
there's such like a level of like this cultural ubiquity and saliency that like no one is really sort of like seeing and like interpreting and like critically analyzing up until I think like they hit a plane into some towers and then
totally.
It's like, oh hey, the history's back.
Absolutely,
it's better than ever, baby.
Absolutely. There's a total 90s mentality of like we've solved racism, and I totally just wonder what the world would have looked like if there was no internet and no 9/11. Like where were we going? What was going to happen?
I have no
fucking idea. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But if anyone listening is into weird aesthetic stuff, you guys should check out. It's called Global Coffee House Aesthetic or something, and it kind of hits on this thing that
I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's called Global Village Coffee House. And it sort of is like a good capturing of like this visual aesthetic that was on like textbooks and in like coffee houses and in like doctors' offices. And it's kind of this thing where it's like clip art and it's a lot of like kumbaya and like the world is all solved and everything's happy now. And Windows is also going to be what saves the world, but not necessarily the internet. And it's kind of like, it's also trying to add like whimsy to just like stuff that sucks and isn't fun. And that's sort of what I am I feel like this is going to be the next vaporwave, is this look of this global village coffee house thing. People making fun of this look, I think could be like the next
big thing. Yeah.
The next wave. And it's almost coming from a commentary on like, you guys were appropriating stuff. Well, we're going to appropriate that right back. And we're going to like make fun of what you guys were doing.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, like, I feel like we have a similar example of that right now, or at least we have for like the last 10 years or so. I think the term people use for it is like this like corporate art style. It's like you see it in a lot of like Google uses it a lot. Sort of like people are shaped in like very simple shapes, like no outlines, just flat colors. And it's sort of like this.
Totally.
It feels like the artwork is like talking down to you in some weird way.
Right.
And I've seen people like already kind of riffing on that a lot. And I think maybe we will look back on the 10s and that will sort of be like the aesthetic. We like if there's ever like a look back on this decade thing, we'll see a lot of that kind of artwork making fun of that.
Yeah, I think that will definitely be one of the things defining the look of this era. But what's weird is I feel like people almost forgot about the Global Village coffee house angle of the 90s, and they just obsess over all the other aesthetics. This has been whittled down on the internet to being like 15 pictures. If you search this aesthetic, there's like 15 pictures you're cycling through. This shit was everywhere. There was hundreds and thousands of these pictures. This was everywhere, and no one really, I think because people don't like it, they're not really like, oh yeah, this was what the 90s looked like. And so that's why I still think it has potential for like art sort of making fun of it. But yeah, I think that we're too quick to say like one look is what like defines a whole
oh yeah,
thing
totally,
for sure.
Totally.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, this also does like there is some sort of like some sort of like Western appropriation of what seems to be like almost like tribal art.
Totally.
Like Coco Pelli.
Like what?
Coco Pelli.
Yeah. I mean, that's, along like certain, like, depending on what you mean by like tribal, because I feel like tribal in and of itself is kind of like a term that just means like not white. And it's like, oh, there's different whatever. I don't want to get too into that, but there is like that, like, the idea of like using this type of imagery to create this like worldly aesthetic sort of thing, as opposed to like taking certain, like actually Coco Pelli, I will say, is a bad example of that, because that comes from somewhere. But like, because you can go like, oh, well, we know where like Coco Pelli comes from, like what region, stuff like that. But this artwork was like the westernization of these types of images.
Totally.
In the same way that like, I feel like in the 90s, like world music became more of like a thing.
Yeah.
It's like world music doesn't mean fuck it. That just means like not white popular music sort of shit, you know, and that it's playing into this idea that I feel like so many people, again, that like, oh, we solved racism. And you look like back during the 90s, and it's like you turn on the Magic School Bus, and it's like, how could there's more racism now than there was then? Because look, all the kids there's one of each kid, and it's like this idea of like, if we just sort of like throw everything at the wall, no one's really going to question any of it, sort of thing. And now that people are questioning it, people are going, but it was fine in the 90s. Like, what happened now? And it's just like, well, O.J. Simpson trial, the L.A. riots, like, it didn't just, like, not exist. Like, we just conceptualized everything differently.
I've never seen this Coco Pelli person, but yes, this is exactly the type of thing that I'm talking about with this, like, aesthetic. And
they do also, like, appropriate Coco Pelli on a lot of stuff. I'm only laughing just because I'm thinking of Bugmain, if you know who that is. Yeah. He's always posting pictures, like they're putting Coco Pelli on the Arizona, like the Sedona, Arizona, like McDonald's like location. Like he's their Ronald McDonald at just that one location.
I mean, maybe this character is the origin of this entire look. Like I fucking see this type of character even still on like water bottles or like logos of companies that haven't quite caught up with the times and stuff. And one big example for me is the LucasArts logo. It has like a little character that looks very much like these sort of like Global Village Coffee House or Coco Pelli things. And yes, it very much feels like the world is one now. There's no more racism. Everything's happy. Yeah, it doesn't matter if we like.
It looks like there's like a sun ray above him.
Exactly, a little like cave drawing guy.
Yeah, exactly,
like
exactly.
Yeah. Did you all ever play like any of the Jumpstart games? Like Jumpstart First Grade or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to play the grades below me because it was easier.
All right. I think I played the third grade one a lot because it was cool. It was, you were a robot man and you had to solve math problems. But
I've seen these before.
Do you remember the Knowledge Adventure logo? Like it's very similar sort of thing. It's like this like Coco Pelli character that like has like the word like this shit was everywhere.
I love
in the
it.
90s.
This is like hitting on such a specific like nostalgia thing for me, to be honest.
Right.
And I immediately feel what you're talking about of like, God, I wish I could go back. Things were quote unquote better back then, but you're right, they weren't, and we started.
It was
questioning
the aesthetics of everything looked.
Yeah,
better,
that's really what
it's
I just like. I think we'd solve racism if we just turned Taco Bell lobbies into the turquoise, purple, whatever they used to be. But nobody wants to hear that.
If we just combined nice purples and bright oranges and put little cave drawing characters, everyone would be happy again.
Yeah, and and to the point of like the rise of the VHS look and like a vaporwave and things like that. I the first thing that comes to my mind is like Tim and Eric. Like yes. I feel like they felt so this is like, so to put it so simply, it's like they felt so revolutionary in like 2004 because they were just skewering the decade that happened right before it. Like there's one sketch in particular where it's called like the internet, but it's like internet.
Oh yeah, I remember.
This for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's just this really archaic like infomercial of these guys who are selling a very like limited version of the internet where you have a CD and you can only talk to people in a chat room who are like just basically AI, like very lazy AI bots you can just have back and forth conversations with. And that was like sort of like hitting on this sort of like 90s mentality of like everything's great now, everything's fine, and we're so oblivious to like the world around us, and like everybody thinks they're paving the new way, you know what I mean? Especially with like the wave of the internet and like people not really even being able to conceive of what that actually means. But I think like Tim and Eric were definitely on the cutting edge of that, where it's like now if you see like 90s stuff is parodied in like T-Mobile commercials and stuff now, and I just kind of roll my eyes at it and I'm like, yeah.
Well, like, at the Liberty height Mutual. Of Tim and Eric, I remember, because we would like with comedy friends and stuff talk about like the influence of it and what was going to happen. Like I remember sort of speculating on like, are we going to see in like 10 years major companies trying to make stuff that looks a lot like the Tim and Eric stuff? And that's absolutely what has happened. And I think that when the 90s aesthetic thing was like allowed to flirt, I think that Tim and Eric allowed something to flourish that was sort of like pent up in everybody, and they sort of opened the floodgates to everyone feeling like, whoa, I want to tap into this sort of like old VHS-y 90s aesthetic, sort of everyone's happy and the world is, hey, it's the 90s, buddy, and everything's going to be okay, and you're going to make some money and some friends and be real cool. I think that like as with Vaporwave, it's kind of like once somebody allows permission for it to exist because one person makes one really great thing, then everybody is like, they're not trying to rip that person off. They already had it in their head. Like I'm sure that surrounding Tim and Eric, there was already a lot of people making stuff that was kind of almost trying to be that, but not quite hitting. And then they opened the floodgates.
There's like a line in Rick Rubin's book on creativity, which I haven't read, but I saw a video where someone was talking about they read the book. And it was something along the lines of like, if an idea comes to you and you don't act upon that idea is just going to go to somebody else. And it's not to say that there are these like nebulous things that just like exist in a cloud that's outside of whatever, but it's like everyone's going through the same shit. We all like have eyes and ears and brains and shit like that. And like, just because like, if you have like a really good, that could be the idea that everyone else goes like, oh shit, like I know what you're talking about. But like, if you don't make that, like, we're all having the same idea. No one's put words to it. It could just go to somebody else.
Totally. 100%.
And there's also a quote here I think about a lot from Tim Heidecker. It's from a Vice interview I just pulled up some time ago, where they ask him, like, a common thread I noticed in your show is the underlying fear that exists below the surface of modern suburban existence. And then Tim responds, like, we're way close to the edge of everything falling apart. It feels like that every day. How has this not turned to total shit? How are people still working at TJ Maxx and not throwing garbage cans through windows?
My God, that sounds deeper than what Tim and Eric. That sounds deeper than a Tim quote usually sounds.
That's what it surprised me. I think that's what like why it stuck with me for so long. And lo and behold, here we are.
That's so great to hear him articulate something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I think that like a lot of that type of stuff does come from like a certain frustration of like, it's like, I think we sort of like hit this on, we did like a review on our bonus episodes, which I mean, you can listen to if you go to patreon.com/thoughtcops and you pay $2 a month.
Let's go.
We reviewed what I Think You Should Leave, and the first season I don't think that any of us liked, and then for some reason like the second season struck a nerve where it's like, I feel like this guy's really angry at society, and like just like there's this like palpable, like this is a person that like, I think that that's where a lot of the shit sometimes comes from, like when it really hits you hard, is like there's a frustration with the way that all of this is going on, that it's like all I can do is fucking scream about it,
Yeah.
And I didn't like the third season.
I haven't seen it. Have you seen that show, Keaton? How do you feel about that?
I kind of like and hate like several things on the show. I think the show overall, what I just wish is that there was 20 other like comedy shows being made. Like there shouldn't be.
I think that's why people
there's
like it
one
so much.
fucking sketch show.
There's no other sketch comedy. I fucking love sketch comedy so much.
So we get one sketch show where one fucking guy is in every sketch and he's the center of every sketch. Yeah, that sort of sucks. Like he's funny enough, but like some of the best sketches are the ones where he's not even in it, and you don't get many chances with that because that's not the format of the show. And Netflix has decided to make one comedy show this decade. I don't really get that. That's a sad thing.
I know it sucks. Like I think really people are just, because I feel like I can never talk bad about that show sometimes because people hold it to such a very high regard.
I will. Too much screaming.
Yeah,
hurts my ears.
Too much screaming, and I wish that they, like, sometimes they get into a good reality situation, and then it goes too far, and then it's not really that funny anymore, and I kind of want them to ride the wave of the part where it felt real. Right. But, I mean, like, given all that, some things in the show have been laugh out loud hilarious and totally made me die in a way that other stuff lately has not been. So
I think every time Patty Harrison is on screen,
she's funny.
Patty's great.
Kills it. Yeah.
She's funny. Like, there's a Tim Heidecker sketch in season 2 that I thought was like so funny. But we also, just to take a break from like us interviewing you, we did receive some voicemails. You can interview us.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
No, we don't. Nobody cares what we have to say about anything. We can listen to some voicemails here, and people have some questions for you. So let's see what they have to say.
All right.
Hey, what's up, Thought Cops? My name's Braxton, and I heard Keaton was on the show. Keaton, and I wanted to leave a question because I know his Sparta stuff is freaking awesome, but I always wondered about this. What's it? This animation I think he did back in the day. It was like this strawberry, like, funny thing. I think it was like a little cousin or something. And I was wondering, what's the story behind that? Like, I've never really like heard it. I think it might have been explained before, but I don't know. I just thought of the video. I was like, I wonder if he could talk about it. But yeah, that's my question. I love you, Keaton.
Wow, very passionate fan there, Keaton.
Wow, that's great. Well, I'm glad to hear from you, Braxton. The Evil Strawberry was when I was just starting to try and get stuff onto Albino Black Sheep. And I already had Ducks Live on the Moon, which was me just trying to make stuff that seemed like other shit that was on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got, so we had bought like a really crappy microphone. And so I made the Ducks Live on the Moon thing, and then was just trying to, like, as you do when you don't have anything, I was just trying to record any sort of sound, like, sort of going on in the living room. And literally, my, like, little brother was around, and we had, like, strawberries we were eating, and I just sort of started fucking with him. It was my little brother. I was fucking with my little brother, I was playing around with my little brother. And me and him are super fucking tight. But yeah, like, the recording isn't him acting, he's mad. My little brother was pissed. And so that recording, I added music to it and like burned it to a CD, and we were playing it in the car, just like stuff I had made. And that audio recording came up, and it was my dad that was like, yeah, that's one you should make a Flash animation to. And every time he said something like that, I was kind of like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But I did it, and he was right. And I animated it on a car ride on a crappy laptop. I don't know how the fuck I did any of that sort of stuff. That's the story. Don't be upset. Me and my little brother are really tight still.
You patch things up.
We patched things up real good.
Good.
Let's hear the next voicemail. Thank you, Braxton.
This next voicemail, this person left 2, and I think this was the better of the 2, so I played, this is the one I'm playing.
Alright, hello. I would like to ask a special question for Keaton as the host of the R Side of Sparta Remix. I would like to ask, how was your initial reaction looking at this sorry if my words are stuttering, this gigantic monster project? Like, what was your reaction to it, Keaton?
Do they mean when it ended up blowing up on YouTube?
I think so.
I
or
think
just
so.
The internet in general.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it took, I would say it took me a while to be into it, because like it had its moment on YTMND. I felt very in control on YTMND. I had friends on there, would get comments. So like anything that was taking off on YouTube was almost me being like, haha, look, that weird site is like showing my stuff too. That's pretty funny. And then when they started like really fucking blowing up, because one of them early on that does not exist anymore, this is really early on, had like 45 million views. And that was like back when that meant a whole lot.
It means a lot now.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It would mean a lot now. Right. But back then,
We cracked like 300.
Yeah, 300.
Yes.
Sparta. Hey, me too. I can barely get 300 views on anything either. So at first, when I saw it like blowing up, I was like, this is pretty interesting. It's blowing up over there. And then when it was really like 45 million views, I was starting to get upset because some of these people not only didn't credit me, they started selling like t-shirts and stuff. I was like, fuck you. You didn't fucking do anything.
That sucks.
So that started to feel like I was describing it as a kick in the teeth. I didn't know what to do, and I was not feeling good about it at first. And then when other people started making sort of more their own creations out of it, I felt like way, way, way better about it, because it was like, okay, people are doing their own things. If they want to grow their channels with my song, making their own like spin on it, great. That is all I fucking do anyways. That's been my whole creative life, has been me like repurposing and taking things. And so while it was like initially blowing up with people like creating their own versions of it, I, to be honest, kind of was just like, that's cool, and stopped looking at it for years and years and years. And it wasn't until like years later I sort of came back and was like, how the fuck is this even still going on? And started to take a little more of an interest at looking at this stuff. I think that I felt like so confident that I was still on a trajectory of making my own cool stuff that I was just like, oh yeah, this is just like some interesting thing going on. I would say there was never like a big moment where I was like, this is awesome. It just didn't happen. If anything, I was upset.
Do you think
and then I got kicked down a well.
Do you think part of the resurgence is sort of this just like cultural like looping of like, oh, like 10 years ago, like we're all remembering this again, and like this is reminding me of like early internet, you know, sort of thing.
Kind of, yes. I have a few theories on this. One thing is like with the rise of like more weird electronic music, like hyperpop stuff, I think it's sort of like struck a nerve because it is not like a dance song. It doesn't really sound like other older electronic music. And so I think it's like hitting this both like retro thing and current day thing. But I think the biggest thing is that it coming into being a popular musical thing that you could like also remix in the earliest days of YouTube has been the longevity, because some of the stuff that was the earliest YouTube memes have stayed forever. Like the CDI like Zelda stuff is probably still like
it
the
is
main YouTube poop stuff. And I think that's literally because when YouTube started, there wasn't that much stuff to like repurpose and edit. Like if you were on LimeWire trying to download episodes of the Super Mario Super Show or whatever, you ended up with just a few episodes. And those are the episodes that I perceived being the ones edited and fucked around with on YouTube poop. Like the Mama Luigi episode of Super Mario Super Show. That's one of the episodes that I had downloaded on LimeWire because they didn't have all of the episodes.
Not a great show either, so maybe that's why.
Not a very good show either.
Also, I want to say really quick on the subject of Sparta Remix again. We also have some emails from listeners that wrote in. You can do that as well if you don't want to give us a call. thoughtcopspodcast@gmail.com. Our inbox is always open for you. We have an email here from.
That being said, we have one more voicemail.
Well, before we get to that, I want to read this one from Lowell. It says, how did you invent Sparta remixes? What are your tips for Sparta remix beginners? And will you be around for a bunch of Sparta events? There's Sparta events?
I don't know about any
Sparta. You go
Sparta
to Sparta,
events.
you fall down a well, I think.
Are you going to try that out?
I might fall down a well. Okay, how did I come up with it? I think I pretty much already explained that.
Yeah, more or less.
I was just trying to make a funny thing that might get big.
Tips for beginners, though. Let's focus on that.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone? Who has the stems and wants to be? They want to be the next Keaton Monger.
Yeah. If you want to be the next Keaton Monger, please just make other stuff. Don't invest any time at all into making Sparta remixes. Make your own music.
Okay.
Like that would be my big tip. If you want to be big, you want to be famous, you want people to know who you are, do not spend all of your time trying to make like YouTube poops. Don't spend all of your time trying to make like a parody of one certain thing. Even if it's getting clicks, try and grind away at like getting really good at music and making some music like for yourself. And I think that the people who make the custom basses where it's like a brand new instrumental kind of based on the Sparta remix, those people are amazing musicians. Those people are better than me a lot of times, and they're really young. And I hope to God that those people also make their own music outside of that. And I know that the music outside of that isn't going to immediately get the same sort of clicks and stuff as the Sparta stuff, but eventually that's going to garner you like people aren't going to later in life care that you made a lot of popular Sparta remixes. They just aren't. Like barely anyone in my life cares that I made the original. So like, what's that say? Like I'm not getting any points for even making the original.
If you're not the original and you want to be a pretender, you're going to get even less.
But if you're trying to get into it, I am so excited though, actually, that it's like the community is excited about it and that it's kind of getting bigger. And some people think it has potential to become like its own music genre or something. So if you're just getting into it, I don't honestly personally have that much advice, but like, I just want to say that I am excited about that. And I don't want to like push people away from doing that either. Yeah.
And that's fair. But before we do this last voicemail, we have one other email I want to read to you here. They have two questions. Are you sure we do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I only see one, but we have one from Pizza Head here who has two questions. Well, they ask you about how do you feel about the insane popularity of Sparta Remix? I think we touched on that enough. But their second question, perhaps most importantly, and key to their name here, is Keaton, what is your favorite type of pizza?
Pepperoni pizza.
Just pepperoni?
Solid.
No, nothing else on there?
Well, I'll get sometimes other flavors, get some pineapple on there. I know people don't like that. Or ham or bacon. But really just a pepperoni pizza is the best one. The other things just sort of take away from the standard pepperoni ass pizza, baby. And I want to
agreement with that.
And then I'll say about like my response to the blowing up of the Sparta remix or whatever. One element that I have not said is stepping away from it for years and kind of being like, yeah, I think that's something happening on YouTube. And then coming back that's probably the moment where I was like, oh my God, this thing's really cool. This was probably like 2016 or something.
Okay.
I sort of returned to looking at this stuff and was like, let me see what these sound like, and had some people start sort of linking me ones that were cool. And then people started adding me to Discord channels. And I entered these Discord channels that had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and the entire Discord channel is just about Sparta Remix. And there's like 7 of them.
Jesus.
That's when I was like, holy fucking shit, this thing. I never really knew where people were talking or how people were like, what is this community? The community is what, just YouTube comments?
I had no idea it was like this big until we had this conversation. Yeah, we have another email here from Trademark Lover. They asked the same question. So yeah, what was the first reaction to when Sparta Remix blew up? So yeah, I think it's like we've seen just how deep the rabbit hole goes. It's insane. Insane. You just had the fact that you were there so early on. You had something in the early days of like, you know, independent internet content creation, more or less, the early 2000s. You happen to get in at the right moment, which is effectively like a gold rush. And then you're still, you know, seeing like, you know, maybe you haven't monetized it, but you have seen like something perhaps, you know, perhaps more valuable is just the love and community that has blossomed around it.
I do get a lot of messages from people being like, this is the best thing ever still. And that is very cool and crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that, like, you know, the Know Your Meme article credits me instead of crediting somebody else, because that would be really upsetting. But one thing I would say is when I made the Evil Strawberry, and before that when I made Ducks Live on the Moon, especially when Ducks Live on the Moon was first said that it was going to be posted on Albino Black Sheep, that was the moment where I was running around the house being like, I'm famous now. This is the best thing ever. Everything's solved. This is unbelievable. And so by the time I made Sparta Remix, I had already had the Leroy Jenkins remix blow up, the Dodson remix blow up. I had already had Evil Strawberry, Ducks Live on the Moon, maybe even the Michael Phelps thing. Maybe that wasn't made yet. I had become maybe like pretty confident and feeling like, oh, I'm going to just be able to churn out 1 million viral things forever. Like, this is nothing. Who cares? So I don't really think Sparta Remix had too much of a like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is blown up. But I was always very excited, as we all are, when you post something and return to your computer and look at all the good comments on it. On YTM&D, I was like very excited to have a good score, good happy comments. Had even had the old classic YTM&Ders who didn't post anymore came back to comment and be like, it would be I'd vote 2 if it didn't have the ending. Master Sitsu, he's a tough critic.
I don't remember anyone who was big on there. I remember the fads, but I don't remember like the users by name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone asked me a bunch of specifics about YTM&D, I wouldn't be able to remember a lot of stuff either, but I had friends on there, and Master Sitsu was someone who, I guess there was this legendary quality to like YTM&D had already existed for a few years, and by the time I got on, I felt like I had missed the heyday. I think I had, in fact. So when someone old commented and you knew of their name, like Master Sitsu, it was like a big deal.
Well, Master Sitsu, if you're out there listening right now, let us know what you thought of the episode.
Yeah, also, email me.
Yeah, or leave a comment. Just let us know. Also, we have one last voicemail, Grant, if you would like to hit that.
This message is for Keaton. I just wanted to let you know I used to watch your Flash animations all the time. I thought they were the funniest thing ever.
Hell yeah.
In retrospect, they're fairly terrible, but damn it, I love them so much.
Right on.
And nowadays, with your the crazy music stuff that you make, I love that stuff. Like, actually, I think it's awesome, and you should definitely keep making that. And just keep being creative in general. Thank you so much for making things for people to laugh at.
Wow, that was so nice. Thank you.
Yeah, very a little honest there, but yeah, very, very nice. It's gotta feel good to have somebody like hanging on to your content and everything you make for so long. Someone was there for the Flash animations. They're there for your music now. It's gotta feel pretty good, right?
That does feel pretty good. That is super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much only the just random messages that I might get of being like, I really like this thing, that makes me feel like it was worth it at all. Because I didn't end up with like a big number following on the social media platforms. I never really tried super hard to do that. Like I was saying, I never posted my like super viral stuff on my YouTube channel. And in the short term, that always felt like true to myself. But now, many years removed from it, I'm like, wait, what was the point of all of this? Like, why do I not have like any numbers? So it's only these little messages and nice things I get that make me feel like, oh, okay, it worked. Look, this person likes it all. That's great.
Yeah, and you can't live off of it, but it's arguably a lot more valuable.
Yeah, probably. They might even write a nice note if I died.
There you go. That's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Your relationship with it reminds me of like, I feel like a number of like different animated like sitcoms and stuff like that, like The Simpsons or Futurama, Family Guy, South Park. That's another one. They'll always have one episode where like Homer's just like accidentally a huge like he's a huge star in Japan. He's Mr. Sparkle, and like he went his whole life never knowing. And then it's like, oh yeah, you step into this Discord channel and it's like there's hundreds of millions of people that are like, well, or hundreds of thousands or however many. There's a lot of people that are like, oh shit, you made this thing that we all worship. And you're like, I didn't know you existed. Oh.
Yeah, totally. It's like hundreds of people in the Discords. Not hundreds
of Discords.
Not hundreds
Amazing.
of thousands, but yes, hundreds. Yeah,
tens of thousands.
I guess, okay, a few things. When the when the like Chuck Norris stuff was the biggest thing on the internet, people would be like, Chuck Norris's tears cure cancer. Too bad he never cries. And there was jokes about that everywhere. I remember eventually there being this little like article where it was like, Chuck Norris has been asked about the internet meme, and this is his response. And everyone was like, oh my God, he's heard about the meme. It's going to be so cool. He's going to like
gone on the computer before. Oh my God.
And I thought for some reason his response would be like, this is hilarious and here's my own spin on the joke. But instead it was like, haha, pretty funny. Please buy my book coming out like August 22nd. And it was like, you fucking idiot. You don't understand it at all. We don't care about you. We care about like making fun of you, or we care about like this meme. You don't really actually matter to it that much. And
we think your movies and shows are a fucking joke, and so are you, and we're laughing at it.
And so I want to be careful to never be too much like, the Sparta remix is kind of stupid and I don't even really care about it that much. Because maybe I did feel that way about it at some point. But I don't feel that way really for real in my heart about it. I feel like this is super cool that this has gotten really big. And one other example is on Tim Heidecker's podcast. I remember somebody calling in and being like, I mean, most of the people that call into his podcast don't really comment, I feel like, on Tim and Eric stuff specifically. But someone was like, my favorite sketch from Tim and Eric was the Crystal Ship sketch. And I remember this Crystal Ship sketch was really fucking funny with the fool's gold and everything. And Tim was like, Crystal Ships, okay. I don't really know what you're talking about, but like, okay. And I was so like, what the fuck? Like, how much involvement maybe did you even have in the creative process of some of the stuff on the show?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like,
was he doing a bit or something? Like,
definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay, because I feel like he tries to have this.
It is hard to tell sometimes. I've definitely seen some moments where it's like, I think he's serious.
At the time, I was listening to tons and tons of episodes of the show. I'm really getting into what Tim was like really like. No, he was not kidding in that moment. And it was a really weird moment for me because, I mean, he could have been like, I don't remember that one or something. But instead, he was like really dismissive of it because it's like, wait, you're not going to bring up like one of the ones that I definitely was in and definitely looked great in and is one that everyone knows. You're going to bring up something else.
I got to vent about something really quick. The Venture Brothers movie came out last week, and I wrote a list article for Hard Drive of the top 10 Venture Brothers episodes because I just finished doing a rewatch of the show in anticipation for the movie.
I would love to rewatch that show. I've only seen the first couple seasons.
Amazing. It's so amazing. And the episode that I picked is number 1. I put a lot of thought into it. I pared it down to like 20 episodes and went down, cutting off one by one till 10. And I very meticulously was like, okay, this one is my favorite. It's the one with Abraham Lincoln's ghost when they're like staying in the White House and they think that the guy's going to kill the president. That's the funniest one. I think that's the best one. And then I put that on there and I got so many comments on the article and on Twitter who were like, quite brazen of you to put the creator's least favorite episode as number 1. And I'm like, I had no idea. Apparently they hate the episode. They publicly have shit on it. They say it's like a bad one.
Who cares?
Like and then all the fans are like parrot everything that they say. And they were like, this list is horrible. You put the worst episode as number 1. And it's like, I feel like you only think that because you heard them say it.
Totally.
And I feel like I don't even know why they think that, first of all, but it was just like the fact that like I as a fan can love one thing so much that somebody did, and then they can like publicly say like this is bad, and then in turn people see that and think I'm stupid for having this opinion that's right. The best one, or I'm uninformed. I didn't listen to all the interviews they've done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
There was a Nick Cave interview where he said, like recently, where he said something like, I wish that people would listen more to like Nocturama than they did like Dig Lazarus Dig. And I'm like, that's like my favorite one. And I think he hates it because I think that there were like some internal issues with his band or whatever that like, oh, they don't really like playing it because like 2 of the members had bad blood or whatever. But it's just like, if anyone were to be like, your favorites, that's a little overrated, I'd be like, I don't, get out of my face, stop talking to me. What do you?
It's my opinion. Fuck you. It's an opinion. Who gives a shit? It's all subjective at the end of the day. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I have freedom of speech.
And that's exactly what we want to cap this episode off and say. Right. You have freedom of speech in this country. Give us a phone call, 312-788-7361. We'll play your voicemail on the air. You can also write to us or send an audio file to us at thoughtcopspodcast@gmail.com. If you want even more freedom of speech, head on over to patreon.com/thoughtcops because we just reviewed The Bear Season 2. We are allowed to say our true feelings on it. Unrestrained, complete freedom of speech to talk about a season of a TV show. Check that out. That was a lot of fun to record, and it just came out. Keaton, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, it's been a blast. I'd love to come back.
Yeah. We'll make that happen at some point.
I was going to say, I'd love to have you back on again and talk about, I feel like we did so much about the Sparta remix that I had so many other questions, and you also had so many other questions, and I feel like we barely cracked it.
I probably have more even to say about Sparta remix when it's something I feel like I don't have much to say. I mean, there is more probably to say. Like people tagging me as someone who hated it early on. Whenever people would write like a fandom article that was about me, the only bullet point was like, Keaton Monger is not proud of this song, even though it's the only thing he's ever made that will be popular and stuff. And that quote was being like put on multiple little wiki things. And that's hard to sort of like manage and navigate because you want to just like put out there fully that like, I support what you all are doing. I really appreciate the community. It's not really my bag. I don't really like to listen to Sparta remixes all that much, but I really, really, really like that is a thing that's going on, and it has nothing to do with me. Like, how crazy would it be if I was like, I hate the Sparta remix, and then everyone stopped doing them because they were like, oh, Keaton hates them. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, people.
And you've done other things.
That too.
You have done so much, and again, we barely scratched the surface of everything you've done and all the questions and topics you gave to us. So I'm going to save those. I'm going to hold on to those. Next time you come on the show, we'll have a whole lot to talk about. I'm sure a lot's going to happen between then and now, too. But again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you on the other side.
I love you all. Thank you.